I'm very excited to be back in New York, where I lived for about a decade. I don't miss the summer weather, but I'm happy to be back here. Yeah, so I'm Jon. I live in Los Angeles now. I'm a designer, and I've spent the last 2 or 3 years at Media Temple working as creative director, and before that I did a lot of brand work, like he was just saying. And most of the work that I've done over the years, which is probably similar to a lot of the work that you guys have done if you are designers and developers, are it's in the realm of redesigning. Probably 75% of the work I've done have been redesigns. You know, people hit you up to redo their brand, redo their packaging, redo their websites. Redesigning logos, collateral, all that stuff that's really fun, and big brand overhauls. And I think as designers, we can look at a website and almost instantly we see what we want to change. And we go down this path where sometimes we go right into this. And so this talk is about not doing that right away, which I've made that mistake a lot of times. And it's about stopping, thinking, reassessing, and thinking strategically. And this, to me, over the years, has really become the part of the creative process that I enjoy the most. Maybe it's because I'm older, and maybe it's because everyone who works for me is so much better of a designer than I am, but this is really what I enjoy doing. So today I want to talk about 4 main aspects of this. Number 1 is simple solutions in solving problems. How do we design to solve problems quickly and effortlessly? Number 2 is focusing on content. We are constantly seeking out content and devouring content, and let's look at why creating and understanding content is so important. 3rd, creating experience. How do we create memorable experiences, online and offline, that make our content stand out from our competitors? And finally, putting a story before design. Importance of doing the diligent work to figure out our story before we leap right into the design. So this is a quote that I would imagine everyone in this room knows. You may have even tried to use it on a client before. And this is a lot more than just, as you probably all know, Helvetica light at 24 in white on a light gray background. To me, this is about using design to solve problems. And a little bit of design can help solve a problem very quickly. And I want to show you a real-world example of a problem that I solved with just a little bit of design. It's not elegant, it's not beautiful, but it improved my life and my wife's life a lot. And it has to do with these 2 machines in my kitchen. So this behemoth on the right is what an espresso machine used to look like if you bought it in 2005. Still works fantastically, by the way. And that's a cheap toaster from Target. And they look different enough. And what happens in my house is at 5:45 every morning, my 6-year-old wakes me up and wants toast. And before I can do that, I have to make coffee for myself. And I'm usually not wearing my glasses or my contacts, so it kind of looks like this. Still pretty easy. Then I grab the plugs, and they look almost identical, and actually more so like this. And so now, granted, there are some major problems in the world right now. Even in the world of design, there are major problems. This is not one of them. This is an insignificant problem to everyone else in the world except myself. But I still wanted to fix it, because what happens is I would plug in this plug, and it takes, like, because the machine's old, about 10 seconds for the red light to turn on. And it wouldn't turn on, so it was like this Russian roulette of morning appliance working. So there's obviously some easy solutions, but I'm not the only user. And just like designing a website or anything else, you can't only design for yourself. You may think you know what to do, but you have to think about the other users. And you don't want to disrupt anyone's workflow. What seems better for you could be worse for someone else. And my wife is my most important client. She has the power to make my life more unpleasant than any client you've ever worked with. And the problem is that we only have one outlet. And she's a painter, and she's a night person. I'm a morning person. I get up at 5:45. She goes to sleep at like 2:45. And so her phone's still charging, and God forbid I remove that. So my simple solution was this. I put a little piece of red tape on there and a sticker. And it was great, and it solved the problem for me. But I got some user feedback. And this was, I can never remember if the sticker is for the coffee or the toaster. It drives me crazy. And so just like in any design process, I iterated and improved, and I came up with this not beautiful and not elegant solution, but but a solution that works really well. There's never the mistake anymore, and this sticker is now, you know, a shade of beige, but it still works. And this is an example of something that's designed, but it's not designed, right? It's missing the pretty, and it's missing what, as designers and people that love beautiful things, we do. And John Setzen says, design makes what feels complex simpler, and what simpler feel richer. And I love this quote, and it makes me think of this sweet spot of simplicity and experience that I feel is like the nirvana of design, if you can hit that. And we have a lot of this right now. There are some great simple experiences, and many of these are happening in the mobile space. If you think about some of the apps we use, like I think a weather app is really an example of a beautiful, simple experience. It's a location, it's a number, and sometimes it's an icon. And there's tons of different weather apps, right? Sometimes you have a picture, sometimes it's snowing, but it's simple. Instagram, such a simple, simple tool. Take a picture, share it, write a caption, sometimes write a caption that long. And I love Things List, which is just a nice way to keep track of your content with a little bit of polish. It's super simple. And you know, on the subject of content, it really is all about content. We're doing all of this for content. And for me, content is about experience, it's about stories, and it's about understanding. That's what we are creating. And I want to show you this website that's called the New England Soup Factory. And Dan Cederholm, who created Dribbble and has a great website, Simple Bits, posted this. And this is one of my favorite things I read in, I don't know, a couple years maybe. And he said this about this website. This is my favorite website. I visit it almost every day. It's not responsive. It's not optimized for iPhone. It looks blurry on a Retina display. It doesn't use the latest HTML5 CSS3 framework. The fonts are nothing special. It's neither skeuomorphic nor flat. It doesn't have an API or VC funding. It hasn't been featured on a prominent tech blog or won an award. It tells me the soups of the day. And he concludes by saying, freely distributed information that's relevant to the person reading it. That's web design. And I started in newspapers, and this really resonates with me. That's why I wanted to go, maybe it was a poor financial decision in the mid to late 90s in San Francisco to go work at the San Francisco Chronicle instead of a startup. But it was something that meant a lot to me. And I still feel like this is why I'm in this. And I think content, as many people say, wins. I think trends do not. Like parallax scrolling is going to get boring, right? More boring. So it doesn't matter how fancy, cool, and trendy your sites are. If your content sucks, no one's going to care. So when we talk about content, you know, it's so many different things. Content is vast. The dictionary will tell you content is the principal substance. And we know that content is much more than what's it going to say. Sorry, let me go back one. Avinash Kushik from Google said, content is anything that adds value to the readers' lives. It can add value by making them smarter, making them laugh, making them do their job better, rush to their child to share the video, make a contribution to charity. And I agree with all of that. I think that's a really beautiful way to put it. And content comes in so many different shapes and sizes these days, right? From, you know, messages we have, tweets, newsletters, video, blog posts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the good content makes us feel something, connects with our emotions, resonates with us. We don't even have to fully understand it, but we get that feeling of connection. And I want to show you one of my favorite commercials ever. And I'm a big fan of commercials, specifically ones in Europe. They seem to have better commercials than us. And this is a Nike commercial, and it came out in about, I think, 2011. It's for the French national soccer team. After the 2010 World Cup, when France didn't win a match, they were caught on camera fighting and training. When they got back to France, they had to go in front of the prime minister and explain their actions. And this is a beautiful piece that is like a rallying piece for the nation and to get behind this team. And it's completely in French. I didn't understand any of it when I first saw it. It is an example of beautiful cinematography, powerful voiceover, great music, and it's definitely content that makes you feel something. It's about a minute long.
élégant comme Céladon, agile comme Scaramouche. Je vous préviens, cher Myrmidon, qu'à la fin de l'envoi, je touche. Tac, je barre la pointe dont vous espériez me faire don. J'ouvre la ligne, je la bouche. Tiens bien ta broche, Laridon. À la fin de l'envoi, je touche. Envoi. Prince, demande à Dieu pardon. Je carte du pied, j'escarmouche, je coupe, je feinte. Et là donc, à la fin de l'envoi, je touche.
I think that whole campaign is stunning. The print work is amazing. And good content makes us a part of something. Even if you have no interest in soccer or French soccer or whatever, when the crowd stands up and those chairs flip up, like there's that sense of anticipation of something that's going to happen. And we really do a lot for the content we want, online and offline. You know, we go stand at shows around hundreds, almost thousands of people all holding up their iPhones while you're trying to watch a band. When I used to live in Brooklyn, for some reason my wife and I would take my kid in a stroller on the subway in the weekend to go to a museum and deal with this, just because we wanted to see the Calder show or whatever it was. We traveled the world to experience the content of foreign lands. And in Los Angeles, around the corner from where I live, a bunch of people stood in line for hours to go buy coffee that was 4 times the price, and pastries that were 4 times the price, that was actually from a grocery store at a place called Dumb Starbucks, just because it was a thing and they wanted to experience it. So we do a lot for the content we want. So where do you get your content? You know, sometimes we have tons of options and sometimes we have not so many. Then there are many factors in why we decide where we go. For news sites, it's a really good example. I mean, a lot of news sources publish the same stories at the same time. So why do we go read specific news sites? Is it the design? Is it the layout? Is it a certain political voice? Is it the one that works best on our device? Is it the one with the least ads? And buying physical products, you know, why do we choose some sites over other sites? I can buy the exact same pair of shoes at Zappos that I can buy at Adidas, and Adidas makes those shoes. So that I should be buying it from there, but the Zappos experience is so much better. And I know I'm going to get it in 24 hours. And so when we talk about experience, creating the experience and this unique story of your content and how people are going to experience it is so important. And you know, so back to the initial point of this, like we dive into redesigns. And we need to step back and think about things like, specifically, who are we targeting? Who is the audience? And the good thing is most of the time you get to define this. And if you're working somewhere or for a client and tells you that their audience is everyone, that is going to be a really impossible task. You can't design for everyone. You have to be targeted. You know, Apple doesn't even design for everyone. So I want to look at an example of differentiating your product and service and experience. And I want to talk about music. Music is a really interesting case. Nowadays, we can get music online in so many different places, and it's exactly the same, right? We can stream it from a variety of services. We can buy it from a variety of services. The songs sound the same. They're the same length. You know, so I want to step back, and I want to think about where we used to get music. And if anyone's old like me, you have been in one of these places, which is called a record store. And this is Amoeba Records in Los Angeles, which is arguably the best record store in the world. There's one in San Francisco, and the original one's in Berkeley. And I grew up in the Bay Area, and I spent pretty much every weekend of my high school life going to Amoeba in Berkeley, because I was a big music geek. And the experience of going to a music store in the 1980s and 90s was you get in the car with your friends, and you put in a mixtape, and you talk about music. And you talk about something you heard, something you read in NME or something like that. And you'd go into the record store and you would divide and conquer and discover. And you would flip through crates like this and you'd pull out a Smokey Robinson record you didn't know existed, or some old Echo and the Bunnymen thing, or you'd grab like a record and show it to a friend and say, have you heard this? It sounds like Joy Division, but if they had a female singer. And that was part of going to a record store. That was the experience, and then was going home and going through your loot. And this, of course, is the cover of DJ Shadow's Introducing album, which I think is like the quintessential record store photograph. It's this thing that kind of pains me deep inside that I feel like my kids are never going to experience, stepping into a small town record store with the record store cat, who I think gets getting cut off by this 4x3. But anyway, and we'd go to people's houses, and we would see walls of vinyl and be envious of that and have an immediate visual connection to like a John Coltrane record. And we know the music by just seeing the cover. And we would create mixtapes for people. And I believe that mixtapes, in my mind, were really the first form of social sharing. We would create these mixtapes, and we spent endless amounts of time on them, and you would cater them for a specific person, and there was a diverse message that you were putting in these things. And then then one day, this happened, right? And this was Napster. And if you're old enough like me to remember using Napster, it was brilliant and horrific at the same time. All of a sudden, anything you wanted was there. And this is Metallica's and Justice for All album in Napster. And when I think of that album, I think of this, that brutal, powerful, testosterone-driven typography in Metallica, and that statue being ripped apart. And this cover scared me when I was younger. I would see guys in the record store with this on the back of a jean jacket, and I would hide the Morrissey album that I was holding because I thought I was going to get my ass beat. And this cover and this band, like, it meant something to people. If you Google Metallica tattoo, you're going to see this, right? And there just isn't that association here. And over time, this, became this. And Spotify is an incredible service. When it started here in the States, I was all over it. I was searching everything I could, but I felt like it was like this kind of like forced discovery. It wasn't the same feeling I had of going to a record store. And when I think about like a band like Arcade Fire, right, I have immediate reactions to their covers. And this is their discography displayed in two different ways, text version and a visual version. I can see Funeral. I remember being in Bleecker Street and buying that in a record store. And I see the Neon Bible album, and I remember seeing that behind them at the United Palace Theater uptown. And it means something to me. And I don't have that kind of attraction to those words. And that's why I have been an Rdio user for a long time. I don't work for Rdio, and they're not paying me to say any of this stuff, but I love this service. And what I love about it is that they've somehow captured the feeling of going into a record store with friends again for me. When I log in here, I see everything that all the people that I've chosen to go to the record store with, what they're listening to. And I'm reminded of things that I haven't listened to in a while, like Nick Cave's Boatman's Call, which I haven't heard in years, and I'll add that to my collection. And then there's new albums that I've heard about that I don't know if they're any good, but I see like this little icon of one of my friends who I know has really good music taste. And so that's sort of like a nice passive suggestion for me. And I can click to see what's in his collection. It's like going to his house and looking through his music. And I can even sort it by what was purchased most recently, what he's listened to the most. I can easily add it to my collection, borrowing music. And then as far as message diversity goes, they've made it so easy for you to share music. And it's not just liking it, right? Because the liking stuff is bullshit. And it just becomes completely like white noise. So this is an email I got from my friend Hamish about this record, and it says, "I love this perhaps a little more than I should, and I'm on the fence as to whether you'll dig. We'll see. A Swedish female teenage fan club, perhaps." And that's exactly how music geeks used to talk. And this is a great, great, great email to receive. And I went and listened to it, and I did like it. And I probably wouldn't have listened to it otherwise. I would not have found that by searching through text links. And these guys have thought about it just a little bit more, like how are people discovering music today? And a lot of people are discovering music with Shazam, so anything I add to Shazam goes right into my playlist. And I think their understanding of who their user is, they're not going for everyone in the world who listens to music, they're going after music geeks. And I think they've nailed it. And they've taken their service and differentiated it to a point where it's not just a service to listen to music online, but it's a service to discover music. And that's what I think a lot of streaming sites are missing these days. So I want to change pace just a little bit and talk about another aspect of getting your story straight before you jump into design. And I want to talk about some of the work that I've been doing with my team over the last couple years at Media Temple. So if you're not familiar with Media Temple, it's a web hosting and cloud services company based in LA, been around since '98. I've been a customer there for like 7 years. I left working on sexy brands to go work in web hosting, and everyone said, "What the hell are you doing?" It's like going to work at the power company. But I loved the service, and they've always been the host for like designers and developers. All the designers I knew hosted there. That's how I ended up there. And so when I started there, my task was to redo the website. So I stepped back and said, let's take a deeper look at this. So first I had to kind of figure out what web hosting was. And we all know what web hosting is, but I didn't really understand it. And what it is web hosting is essentially a utility, right? I would imagine everyone in this room has electric, running water, heat, hopefully insurance, and some kind of cell phone plan, right? And if you have a website, it's hosted somewhere. Even if it's a Tumblr, it's hosted at Tumblr, or probably Amazon, wherever they do all their stuff. But and if you're working for someone, at some point they had to make a decision about where to host their website. And it's easy, and what's interesting is you don't think about Con Ed, if you live in New York, as your power company until the power goes out. And it's kind of the same with a web host. You don't necessarily think about the web host until you have a problem. And so it's easy to choose a power company because in your power company, in your city, there's generally only one power company. And in web hosting, there's like over 40,000 web hosting companies. And since I've been up here, 3 or 4 have probably started. And it's not a joke. I mean, it is kind of a joke, but it's true. So when you look at the competitive landscape of web hosting, it's pretty crazy. There's Gators, Hulk Hogan, Clouds, 99-cent signs, even this fake one that one of my guys who works for me made called Hose Chopper, the only web host with a chopper. And when I started at Media Temple, this is the site that I inherited, and this is the site that made me and pretty much every other designer I knew a customer. And it really stood out. It was very high touch, it was polished, and I did a lot of user testing on this site, and a lot of the things that I thought instantaneously, like you probably are thinking, is that it feels technical. And we heard that from people. And these big logos here felt like someone running a small design studio or a freelancer, this wasn't the right place for them. And if you talk to people that are customers, you hear how great the support is at Media Temple. And this was the support page and the help page. And so as I dove a bit deeper into the brand assessment, I showed this to the CEO at the time. And I said, this Under Armour ad feels like what Media Temple feels like to me. And this Nike Women's Running ad is what it actually should feel like, because as a customer, that's what that brand feels like. Whereas this one is tough, metallic, dismissive, machine-like, and elitist. That's kind of what that site felt like to me. And as a customer, I know it to be elegant, conditioned, inviting, human, and approachable. And so this sort of set the groundwork to personify the products, right? Instead of these literal interpretations of hosting products with these best-of-class server renderings, we switched to focusing on the people who are using the products, because I can relate to this dude. His name is Shelby White. He runs a great site called Design Inspiration. The mood board, the desk, the camera, his equipment, it's everything that I understand. And we kept hearing from people that it always felt like there was an arm beam behind you. And so we have support icons up there, and then guys who, frankly look like guys who would be really good at helping you with computers. And they are. And so back to this idea of message diversity versus message discipline, you can only see if you have a little like symbol and you have 30,000 next to it, does it even mean anything anymore? Is it almost expected? And the I love this, it doesn't really do it. So one of the things I wanted to do was tell a story about the company through the eyes of our customers. And I wanted to, and I pitched this idea to do this thing called Made on MT when we would feature our customers. And what I didn't want this to be were our customers talking about Media Temple, because I find that to be disingenuous. I don't like those kind of videos. And frankly, if I'm a designer and I'm watching another designer be profiled, I don't want to hear them talk about their power company or their water company, and I kind of don't want to hear them talk about their web host. I just want to hear about their day-to-day, their struggles, where they work. I want to see their process. And so I want to show you some clips of these videos. It's about 1.5 minutes long.
I personally don't know how it's possible to be a surfer and not be sensitive to the environment around you. It's probably impossible.
It's been adapted and changed and grown all over the world to this beautiful movement on breast cancer prevention.
I didn't like having to be creative at 9 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Everything we do is real. So when you see somebody jumping off a bridge or you see somebody doing something, like they're actually doing it. Like I've pushed people so far.
It's that moment in sports when you go live or active or you're sparring, that's when you know what you know.
The original goal for the film was to raise $25,000 for Kane's Scholarship Fund, and the next day we raised over $60,000.
It really was a series of irresponsible decisions that led to us being successful at what we do.
It's off the beaten path, you know, it's in the middle of this neighborhood. You know, you walk in and you can just have like a simple plate of pasta, or you can walk in and have like a pretty mind-blowing meal.
There's an extraordinary amount of experience and passion for what is done here.
Sat down and started talking about it, and he saw how excited I was about the idea of like elevating a common hot dog to something that's gourmet.
A butter knife is, you know, how you get paint out of the can and how you mix it up. It's just all about like, it's about hustling, really.
This is the way that newspapers were printed, books were printed, pamphlets were printed. Anything that was printed on a press, much like mine.
All the old timers talking about how great Gansett used to be, came the idea that, you know, it would be cool to bring back Grandpa's beer.
And I think if you contrast those videos with this site, it's almost like two different companies, right? This visual patchwork of people that I would imagine are relatable as opposed to this. And so those videos, we worked on them about 1.5 years before, started those almost 1.5 years before we finished our new site, which looks like this. And that really paved the way for what we were going to do, because they were so well received. So, and we kind of overnight went from a company just selling a product to a company selling a service that's powered by people. And we put all our people up front, and we put our customers up front. We made it big, bold, responsive. We kept it geeky enough for a lot of our customers with these sci-fi images that were made by a studio called DKNG in LA. We worked with a company called Character in San Francisco on the design. And it's been great for us. And we also, you know, are trying to have a better voice in our community. And we're inviting people from our community to participate in this blog of ours and write stories that are relevant to our audience. And the results so far have been great. The message diversity that we're getting from people has been excellent. And one of the things we wanted to do is we wanted to bring older customers out of the woodwork to talk about us again, right? Because people don't talk about web hosts unless there's a problem. So it was nice to hear stuff like, you know, loving the redesign, being so proud to host desktops and multiple other sites with you for the past few years, cheers. And some nice recognition, dudes writing blog posts about why after these years they're still customers. We have a little survey after you purchase something, why did you join us today? And we hear a lot of these kinds of things. The features for the price, but also the site design and blog posts appeal to my sense of design aesthetic. Seem to be interesting, useful articles. Give me a sense of professionalism that I liked. We weren't hearing that before, and we were under a great amount of pressure to get this site done and out, mainly not so much internally, but just on my team of 12 to get this done, because our audience is extremely critical. These are the top tier designers and developers out there. And this is my favorite comment we got on the website. Media Temple, annoying white pixel on your new website. So that was kind of what we were up against. And so we actually have this printed out on the wall. And it means, and we gave one to our QA department too. So anyway, it's really important to extend this experience like past just the website design, right? There's tons of touch points in a company. What's it like when you get on the phone? How are we on Twitter? And how do we portray ourselves as a company? And this redesign did it as much for us externally as it's done internally. You know, our people that are on the 120 some odd people we have that are in our support department are really like the engine that drives the company and gives us our great reputation. And so we wanted to really showcase our workplace, which no one had ever seen inside. And we wanted to showcase the day-to-day there. And you know, with 40,000 web hosts and everyone's talking about pricing and tech specs and et cetera, we didn't want a talking heads video, you know, of just people rambling on about products and culture and all that stuff. So we did something that was a little bit more stripped back, and it's been super successful for us. And just telling this story of the company has brought so many people into the brand that maybe wouldn't have come through there. So I'll show you that now. It's also about a minute and 20 seconds long.
All through the night, and every single day, we get together and get to work. We come from different directions, with different talents and different points of view. Designers, musicians, coders, parents, foodies, geeks, gamers, inventors, people who build things, share things, people who believe in the power of ideas. That's why we're always here, day or night, rain or shine. Because it's our job to make sure your ideas always have a place to shine. We are Media Temple. We host great ideas.
And the last point I'll make on video, and I love making videos, and they're actually really easy to do. I always thought that they would be hard, and about 5 years ago, I started working with a guy called Chris Gibbon who taught me how to make videos properly, and they're really easy. And you know, this is and nowadays you don't need a lot of money. I mean, we made that video for $1,500 maybe. We had a 5D. My video producer Levi is super talented. That foot belongs to Ian, who's one of my front end guys. The voiceover is done by someone in our marketing department. We wrote a really simple script, and I hit up a friend to make some music. So you can do this, and it's a really, really great way to tell your company's story and stand out in a crowd. So where do we go from here? From here, I suggest that you kind of pause, and I suggest you look at what you're working on and ask yourself if you really thought about your content. What's on your website? Have you thought about how someone will experience the site? Not just how they click, but why they click. Is it substance over style? It should be. And you know, don't forget, right? Simple solutions, solving problems, focus on content, create an experience that differentiates, and put the story of your brand or your client before the design. Your big spark is not a wireframe. It's a story, it's a solution, it's an experience. You're all talented people, and designs will come to you. That's not going to be the hard part. And you know, it doesn't matter how fancy and cool and trendy the sites are. If the content sucks, no one's really going to care. So thank you so much.